What if the promise of a new year was shattered by a knock that heralded not hope, but unimaginable horror? This is the chilling reality that unfolded in a quiet Richmond neighborhood, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the veneer of normalcy. The first day of 2006 began with the quiet anticipation that often accompanies a new year. In Woodland Heights, families lingered in the warmth of their homes, the echoes of holiday celebrations still resonating. But this tranquility was soon to be shattered, replaced by a nightmare that would forever haunt the city of Richmond. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows, smoke began to billow from a house on West 31st Street. Fire crews, expecting a routine call, were met with a scene of unimaginable brutality. The fire, deliberately set, was merely a veil concealing a far more sinister truth. In the basement of the burning home, firefighters discovered the bodies of 4 individuals, their limbs bound with electrical cords and tape. Each victim had been bludgeoned with a claw hammer and their throats slashed in a calculated act of execution. The scene spoke of prolonged torture and a chilling disregard for human life. This was not a random act of violence. It was a meticulously planned and executed massacre. The family had been hunted within their own home, subjected to unimaginable terror before being brutally murdered. The perpetrators had lingered, savoring the unfolding horror before attempting to erase their crime with fire. The victims were Catherine, Brian, Stella, and Ruby Harvey, not figures of fame, but cherished members of their community. Catherine, a vibrant and creative woman, co-owned a beloved toy store, a haven for children and families. Brian, a former musician, had embraced the quiet joys of fatherhood, his introspective spirit endearing him to all who knew him. Their daughters, Stella, a precocious 9-year-old, and Ruby, a joyful 4-year-old, were just beginning to blossom. Their lives, full of promise and potential, were extinguished in a senseless act of violence. The loss reverberated through the community, leaving a void that could never be filled. As news of the murders spread, grief quickly morphed into confusion and fear. There were no signs of forced entry, no known threats, no apparent motive. The sheer brutality of the crime defied comprehension. Yet investigators sensed a chilling intentionality, a calculated performance of violence. This was not a crime of passion, but a cold, deliberate act. The perpetrators had not simply killed, they had orchestrated a scene of terror, leaving behind a haunting tableau of cruelty. The investigation was just the beginning of a descent into the darkest recesses of the human psyche. The perpetrators, later identified as Ricky Gray and Ray Dandridge, had entered the Harvey home with a chilling sense of purpose. They came armed with tape, weapons, and a plan to inflict maximum terror. Their actions were deliberate, methodical, and devoid of any semblance of humanity. Gray and Dandridge systematically bound Catherine, Brian, and young Ruby in the basement. Meanwhile, Dandridge ransacked the house, searching for valuables while transforming the family's sanctuary into a scene of unimaginable horror. The arrival of Stella from a sleepover only deepened the tragedy. Catherine, under duress, was forced to retrieve Stella from her friend's house, concealing the terror that awaited her daughter. The image of Catherine, pale and composed, standing in the doorway, would forever haunt those who witnessed it. The illusion of safety was shattered, replaced by the grim reality of captivity. In the basement, the family was subjected to a prolonged ordeal of torture and terror. Gray, with chilling precision, used a blade to slash their throats, the packing tape still clinging to their skin. But the horror did not end there. He then used a claw hammer to inflict further trauma, turning a cold execution into a grotesque display of violence. The medical examiner's report, while clinical, could not fully capture the depravity of the scene. Brian and Catherine died from blunt force trauma. Stella succumbed to smoke inhalation and crushing blows. Ruby, just 4 years old, was stabbed in the back, the wound piercing her lung. These were not mere statistics, but the final moments of lives brutally extinguished. As a final act of desecration, Gray and Dandridge set fire to the house, using a small art easel as kindling. This was not simply an attempt to destroy evidence, but a symbolic act of annihilation, erasing the family's identity and transforming their home into a tomb. The fire, however, did not go unnoticed. Johnny Hott, a friend of Brian's, spotted the smoke and alerted the authorities. His call set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately unravel the truth and bring the perpetrators to justice. The men who had walked out of the Harvey home, seemingly untouched by the horror they had unleashed, were about to face the consequences of their actions. Ricky Gray and Ray Dandridge were no strangers to violence. Their lives were marked by criminal records, failed relationships, and a shared propensity for brutality. Their paths, intertwined by blood and a shared history of violence, led them to commit unspeakable acts of cruelty. Ricky Gray's history was one of instability and violence. He had spent years in and out of prison, known for his explosive temper and a tendency to make life miserable for those around him. His relationship with his third wife, Trevor Terrell, was particularly volatile. Trevor Terrell's death, initially dismissed as a drug overdose, was later revealed to be a brutal murder. Ricky Gray was the prime suspect, but authorities failed to connect the dots. Enter Ray Dandridge, Gray's nephew, recently released from prison after serving time for armed robbery. Dandridge's arrival only exacerbated Gray's violent tendencies. The two men, bound by a shared disregard for human life, embarked on a spree of violence that culminated in the Harvey family massacre. Their actions were a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity. After Trevor Terrell's death, Gray and Dandridge fled to Arlington, Virginia, hoping to evade justice, but their violent tendencies could not be suppressed. On New Year's Eve, they attacked Ryan and Carrie, leaving him for dead in front of his own home. Carrie survived, but his life was forever altered. Carrie's testimony provided crucial evidence linking Gray and Dandridge to the Harvey family murders. But the true horror of their actions was only beginning to emerge. The Harvey family massacre was not an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of violence and depravity. Gray later confessed that the motive behind the Harvey family murders was simply money. They had not targeted the family specifically, but had simply seized an opportunity when they found the front door open. Their desperation for money led them to commit an act of unspeakable cruelty. Once inside the Harvey home, Gray and Dandridge held the family hostage. When friends arrived for a playdate, Catherine was forced to maintain a facade of normalcy, knowing that her family's lives hung in the balance. Her bravery and composure in the face of unimaginable terror were a testament to her love for her family. After murdering the Harvey family, Gray and Dandridge set fire to the house in an attempt to destroy the evidence. But their efforts were in vain. The fire only served to draw attention to their crime and ultimately led to their capture. Their attempt to erase the truth was a failure. A few days later, Gray and Dandridge turned on their accomplice, Ashley Baskerville, and her parents, adding them to the growing list of victims. Their killing spree was a chilling reminder of the capacity for evil that exists within humanity. The Harvey family murders serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present threat of violence. It is a call to vigilance, to be aware of our surroundings and to protect those who are vulnerable. It is also a call to justice, to ensure that those who commit such heinous crimes are held accountable for their actions. On January 3, 2006, a seemingly ordinary robbery unfolded in Chesterfield County, Virginia. A couple residing on Hollywood Drive became the unsuspecting targets of a meticulously planned crime. The perpetrators, a trio consisting of 2 men and a woman, approached their door under the guise of seeking directions. Their initial facade of harmlessness quickly dissolved as they forced their way inside, terrorizing the couple. The intruders ransacked the house, making off with a computer, a television, and $800 in cash. A plea for compassion, highlighting the wife's disability and the husband's role as her caregiver, briefly gave the criminals pause. However, the intrusion had already irrevocably violated the sanctity of their home. The stolen goods were just the beginning. On January 6, 2006, a concerned citizen contacted the Chesterfield police station with a disturbing tip. She expressed her anxieties regarding her daughter's friend, 21-year-old Ashley Baskerville, and her unsettling association with 2 men, Ricky Gray and Ray Dandridge. These men had been staying at Ashley's residence and were now suspected of involvement in the Harvey family murders. This tip propelled investigators to Ashley's home on East Broad Road, where she lived with her mother, Mary Baskerville Tucker, and stepfather, Percy L. Tucker. What they discovered within those walls was a scene of unspeakable horror. The house was in disarray, a stark testament to the violence that had transpired. Percy L. and Mary had been brutally murdered, their throats slashed with savage precision. But the true extent of the depravity was revealed in what they had done to Ashley. She had been suffocated, a plastic bag tightly sealed around her head with duct tape. This same tape had been used to bind her and her family, silencing their screams and extinguishing any hope of escape. The victims had been gagged and bound, a cruel display of dominance. Their bodies were left within the confines of their own home, where their lives had been so violently extinguished. The police quickly connected the dots, realizing that the stolen items from the Chesterfield home invasion matched those found at the Baskerville Tucker residence. The most damning piece of evidence was the ring Ashley was wearing. It was Catherine Harvey's wedding ring. Gray and Dandridge were on a rampage, their thirst for violence insatiable. This was not merely a robbery gone awry. It was the continuation of a spree that had already left a trail of devastation in its wake. On the morning of January 7, 2006, Ricky Gray and Ray Dandridge were apprehended in Philadelphia, where they were staying at Dandridge's father's home. Within an hour of his arrest, Dandridge confessed to the murders of Mary and Percy L. Tucker, as well as Ashley Baskerville. 12 hours later, Gray, who had been silently stewing in his cell, requested to speak with a detective. What followed was a chilling confession, a detailed 3-page account of his crimes. He described how he had murdered the Harvey family, using a kitchen knife and a claw hammer to brutally end their lives. Gray offered no justification for his actions, stating, "I don't believe sorry is strong enough." He confessed to beating his wife, Trevor, to death while Dandridge held her down, and admitted his involvement in the Tucker Baskerville murders. Gray even confessed to the brutal attack on Ryan Carey. The floodgates had opened, and a torrent of depravity poured forth. As the investigation progressed, the police pieced together the full story. By January 8, 2006, they had confirmed Ashley Baskerville's involvement. She was not merely a victim caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. She had actively participated in the robbery and murders. Evidence, including witness testimony and items found during the investigation, revealed that Ashley had played a role in the crimes. She had acted as a lookout while Gray and Dandridge entered the Harvey home to rob them. Later, she became a disposable pawn, discarded by the monsters she had aligned herself with. In their confessions, Gray and Dandridge claimed that Ashley had pretended to be a victim, allowing herself to be tied up as part of the plan to rob her parents. But when things went awry, Gray decided he no longer needed her and killed her, stealing her parents' car to make their escape. The entire sequence of events was a twisted web of lies, manipulation, and brutal violence. What began as a robbery spiraled into something far more sinister, and the confessions from Gray and Dandridge revealed the depth of their involvement in the deaths of so many innocent people. The aftermath of their arrests sent shockwaves through the community, leaving behind a trail of broken lives and unanswered questions. The court proceedings for Ricky Gray and Ray Dandridge were as intense and chilling as the crimes they had committed. Both men were tried in the city of Richmond Circuit Court in Virginia, with the weight of the murders hanging over them. On February 9, 2006, the legal process began to unfold. Ricky Gray was charged with 5 counts of capital murder for his role in the horrific murders of the Harvey family. These charges included killing more than once in a 3-year period, committing multiple murders in a single act, killing during a robbery, and killing 2 children under 14 years old. Dandridge was charged with 3 counts of capital murder for the deaths of the Baskerville Tucker family, with one of those charges later encompassing his role in the Harvey murders. Initially, Dandridge pleaded not guilty, but as the trial progressed and the evidence against him mounted, he made a dramatic change. Just before closing arguments, he switched his plea to guilty for all 3 murders, agreeing to a deal that would keep him behind bars for the rest of his life without the possibility of parole. This was his attempt to avoid the death penalty, but his guilt was undeniable. Gray, however, maintained his not guilty plea. His defense team attempted to argue that he had suffered physical and sexual abuse as a child and that he was under the influence of PCP at the time of the murders, hoping for leniency. But the jury was not swayed. After a 4-day trial and just 30 minutes of deliberation, they found him guilty on all 5 capital murder charges. The jury recommended the death penalty for the murders of the Harvey children, Stella and Ruby, while suggesting life in prison for the other 3 charges. On October 23, 2006, Gray was officially sentenced to death, but the legal battles were far from over. In December 2006, Ricky Gray was also indicted for the murder of 37-year-old Cheryl Warner, a mother of 3 whose body was found in a burning house in Culpeper County. She had been shot and hanged in the basement, another horrific act that Gray would have to answer for. However, this charge was eventually dropped in 2008 due to contradictory evidence. Even after his sentence, Gray's case dragged on. Between 2011 and 2015, his execution was delayed multiple times due to appeals in both state and federal courts. In November 2015, the Fourth Circuit Court rejected one of his appeals. In January 2016, Gray's execution was set for March 16, 2016. His lawyers filed yet another appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court, which chose not to hear his case later that year. Finally, in 2016, after all appeals were exhausted, Governor Terry McAuliffe denied Gray's clemency plea. His execution was scheduled for January 18, 2017. At approximately 10 p.m. that night, Ricky Gray was executed by lethal injection at the Greensville Correctional Center. Ray Dandridge is still serving his life sentence in Sussex II State Prison. His story did not end with the trial, and the weight of his actions continues to bear down on him as he remains behind bars. The trial and its aftermath revealed the profound darkness that resided within these two men. Gray, who ultimately faced the ultimate penalty, and Dandridge, who will spend the remainder of his days in prison, both left a trail of devastation that continues to resonate in the Richmond community. As the dust settles, one question lingers in the minds of those left to pick up the pieces. Was this truly the end of their deadly spree? The purpose of this narrative is to shed light on the importance of vigilance, the fragility of innocence, and the enduring need for justice in the face of unimaginable evil. What lessons can we learn from this tragic chapter in Richmond's history? Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. Let us remember the victims and strive to create a safer, more just world. If you found this account informative and thought-provoking, please like and share this video to help raise awareness. Subscribe to our channel, Into the Crime Depths, for more in-depth explorations of true crime stories.